The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 4437. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 4437, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to transportation finance, the first engrossment.
Recognize the member from Brown, Representative Torkelson, to introduce the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. It's my personal privilege to present House File 4437, the constitutional amendment that would dedicate sales tax revenues, existing sales tax revenues, to transportation projects across the state. The question on the ballot will be, shall the Minnesota Constitution be amended to increase funding for roads and bridges by dedicating existing sales tax revenue from the state motor vehicle sale of motor vehicle parts? Members, it's a fairly short bill. Article 1 of the bill that contains that question also contains the language that would be added to the Constitution. And the Article 2 of the bill is the mechanics of just how this would work once it's been put into action. The change, fairly minor change, is that 4.5% of these revenues will be dedicated to small cities. The remaining 95.5% will go into the Highway User Tax Distribution Fund. The portion of that fund that goes to state roads will be deposited into a new account called the construction account. That will allow us to make sure that these resources are dedicated to road and bridge construction across the state of Minnesota. In the session law portion of the bill, we have some other details of just how the amount is determined. We will not be counting pennies at our local auto parts store. Rather, we will make an estimate by the Department of Management and Budget as to how much of the sales tax revenue for the year is generated by auto parts sales, and that percentage then will be transferred into these accounts. Finally, this will not happen suddenly. It is structured in a way that it will be ramped in over a period of time. We passed legislation last year that statutorily dedicated some of these revenues to transportation, and we're going to be building on that statutory dedication by increasing the percentages in 10% increments over a period of 5 years till we get to the 100% allocation of these resources. Total amount of resources that will be dedicated by this amendment amounts in the final year around $300 million, and we build up to that over a period of time. This amendment, of course, is somewhat controversial, but it does have very broad support. The need for transportation funding is well documented. We all know that our roads and bridges are important to every aspect of our society. We all depend on roads and bridges to get the goods and services we need to continue our lives and to do our business. Whether you're a driver or not, you depend on these systems to get the things you need so people can take care of you if you can't take care of yourself. With that, Mr. Speaker, I will stand for questions.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Bernardi moves to amend House File number 4437, the first engrossment, as follows, and the amendment is coded A8.
Recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Bernardi, to introduce your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to ask members for their support of this amendment. You know, you often hear about truth in advertising. Well, this amendment is sort of like the full truth in advertising. And what the ballot, this language being added to the ballot to end a sentence and information that voters need to know when they're at the polls making this decision. So the language that needs to be added when people go to the polls is that this amendment raises no new revenue. It only dedicates existing revenue that currently pays for, and bear with me right now, I will read some of the things that the funding that it comes from currently pays for. Early childhood education, K-12 education, higher education, child care assistance, disability services, nursing homes, veteran services, public safety, local government aid, elderly services, transit, and other services. If this amendment for transportation is approved, it may force funding cuts to other areas when the state is in a deficit. So this full truth in advertising statement will help voters to be able to make a decision if this is what they want to do or not. So it's important to remember that this does not raise any new revenue. It shifts money around. It diverts funding and could force cuts to things I mentioned like education and health care, important things that Minnesotans value. And it does not solve our transportation needs. I talked earlier this year about transportation, and it's really important to get that we as legislators here roll up our sleeves and develop a sustainable, comprehensive solutions that are long-term for our transportation system. So with that, I ask members to help the public have a better understanding of what they're voting on, and making sure they know that this is no new revenue and that it diverts funds from areas that are currently of value to Minnesota. Thank you.
Discussion on the amendment. The member from Brown, Representative Torkelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Bernardi, for bringing your amendment forward. You describe it as truth in advertising. I would describe it as anything but truth in advertising, Representative. The truth is we currently have a budget surplus. These resources are available, and transportation is an important aspect of our state's services. You should all by now have a pie chart on your desks that's titled General Fund Spending FY 2016 and 17. And I know you might have to put your reading glasses on to see it, but the slice of the pie that goes to transportation today from the general fund is 0.7%. And somehow the author of this amendment is trying to tell us that by doubling that all the way to 1.4%, more or less, that we are somehow threatening the other pieces of the pie, that they will not have enough resources to do what they need to do. I argue, Mr. Speaker and members, that this is still a very small fraction of our state's general fund, and it's a fraction that is critical, absolutely critical to our state's economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
To the amendment, the member from Ramsey, Representative Hausman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. What one needs to remember in addition to this pie chart is that the following revenue streams flow every year to transportation: gas tax, license tabs, motor vehicle sales tax, property tax, wheelage tax, sales tax, and of course federal money. Every year they flow to transportation. And now that that doesn't solve the problem, rather than adjust the level of one of those 7 streams of funding, the transportation sector is going after 2 other tools that are really the only tools that the rest of the groups on this pie chart have to depend on: the general fund and general obligation bonding. So the truth in advertising is exactly necessary for the public to understand what this is all about. And here's the downside even for the transportation sector. After the public votes on this constitutional amendment, the public will think they've solved the transportation funding problem. And what will happen if the next year we again look for additional funding? Because of course, as Representative Torkelson points out, this piece that we're adding to the constitutional dedication is overall a relatively small piece. But the public will think they've accomplished something by voting for the constitutional amendment. So this is one of those times when I would suggest be careful what you ask for, because that somewhat false promise will be misunderstood by the public unless we emphasize the truth in advertising, as Representative Bernardi is suggesting.
The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Thank you. Would the member from Anoka, Representative Bernardi, yield to a question?
She will yield. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Representative Bernardi, what happened? You voted for a constitutional amendment to dedicate general fund revenues to transportation before. You've advocated for this before in the past in your legislative career. What changed?
Representative Bernardi.
Representative Garofalo, you would have to refresh my memory of when I did that. But the important part is that we are fully being truthful with the public on what we're doing. That's what they expect from us, and that's what we can offer together here on the floor.
Representative Garofalo.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Representative Bernardi, perhaps I will refresh your recollection. When the motor vehicle sales tax constitutional amendment was before this body, you and I joined together to vote in favor of that provision, along with other things that were tied in a very large amendment. You voted for that. It went to the voters. It was passed overwhelmingly. It did the exact same thing. It dedicated money that was currently going from the general fund into transportation projects. And so if you would yield for another question, if you could just tell us what changed.
Representative Garofalo, I was not serving in the legislature at that time, so I did not vote on that.
Representative Garofalo.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Bernardi, yes, you were. 2005 and 2006.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Halverson, for what purpose do you rise?
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
State your point of order.
Mr. Speaker, under Section 124 of the Masons Legislative Manual, it says that it is not the person but the measure that is the subject of the debate, and it is not allowable to arraign the motives of a member. And I ask the Speaker to remind the body that we should not be questioning motives current or past of a member's vote.
Representative Halverson, thank you. I do not have my Masons in my hand right now, but I will assume that members heard that you read that accurately, and I think you've just reminded them. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If my friend Representative Bernardi would yield for another question.
She will yield, Representative Garofalo.
And to be clear, Representative Bernardi, in no way am I questioning your integrity or motives. As I'm thinking about how to vote on this amendment, I want to make sure that I have a full breadth of the facts and information that are before us. You and I joined together, along with a bipartisan majority in this chamber, to constitutionally dedicate the motor vehicle sales tax that was previously going into the general fund. We dedicated that to transportation. And now I often look to you for guidance on how I should be voting. And with the change in heart and your authorship of this amendment, I'm wondering if perhaps I am mistaken. So I'm asking for what new information is available in light of the fact that we have both joined together to previously dedicate general fund money for transportation, and now there seems to be a change of heart.
Representative Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Garofalo, I know you love doing this kind of banter, but I will be clear on this. That funding back then had new revenue with it. And this proposal that's being proposed does not have any new revenue involved. Thank you.
Representative Garofalo.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And members, just to be clear, there actually was no new revenue in that bill because Governor Pawlenty vetoed it. The only portion that became into law was the constitutional amendment that went to the voters, and the voters overwhelmingly voted for. This was a constitutional dedication of the motor vehicle sales tax that went to transportation. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if you were in the chamber then and you voted for that, you're having a very difficult time explaining what is wrong with the underlying bill. The amendment that is before us was in no part of the motor vehicle sales tax dedication. This language wasn't in there. Financially, it does the exact same thing. It prioritizes general fund money for transportation. There's no difference there. So the language before us, the Bernardi A8 amendment, is irrelevant, it's unnecessary, and we don't need to be voting in favor of today, but members, we should be voting on the underlying bill. We'll talk about that later. I would urge a no vote, and I would urge DFL members to check their voting records and to vote consistently.
The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm kind of a stickler to detail. There's a piece of paper that was passed out. It says we oppose the proposed constitutional amendment. There's no signature on it. I guess that's from me, for members. That should have my name on it.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hortman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Garofalo, for reminding me of one of my all-time favorite days in the Minnesota legislature when Republican Representative Ron Earhart had his gigantic banker's box on his desk, and that was before our 24-hour filing rule. and the Earhart Amendment to the Holberg Transportation Finance Bill provided substantial new revenue. So while Governor Pawlenty vetoed the revenue, the package that Representative Bernardi and I and you voted on had substantial revenue in it when we voted on it. Now, of course, it was a pretty bad idea for the governor to veto that revenue because it was clearly badly needed, which the state saw all too clearly in the coming years with transportation disasters. And we fortunately were able to remedy those transportation disasters by overriding that intransigent governor in 2008.
The member from Dakota, Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's been a fascinating walk down memory lane. Some of us were in the chamber, others of us were far too young to be elected. But I want to return to the points of Representative Bernardi's amendment that we are debating, because it's really important. We know that voter turnout in Minnesota is among the highest in the nation, and we're so proud of the participation that Minnesotans have in their democracy. And if we're going to choose to delegate the responsibility of creating new public policy to the people of Minnesota, we want to be sure that the people of Minnesota know clearly what they're voting on. And the people of Minnesota love facts, and the people of Minnesota love transparency. And those are values that we should be lifting up and supporting if we are really going to send legislation to the voters to be decided. And so I rise in support of Representative Bernardi's amendment, and we should vote yes for clarity, transparency, and for the people of Minnesota. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to make sure it's perfectly clear to the public that's watching this. We're talking about a fixed amount of money. There's no new revenue coming in that's going to be going to transportation. What this is it takes money away from the factors that are listed in Representative Bernardi's amendment. Early childhood education, K-12 education, higher education, health care, child care assistance, et cetera, the work of government in those other areas. So what this amendment does is it diverts money from those sources to be spending it on, or those uses to be spending that money on transportation. No new dollars coming in to do that. That's one thing when it's a surplus, as Representative Torkelson said. It is, as is referenced in the amendment, a very different thing when there is a deficit, such that at that point, those other areas face funding cuts or perhaps tax increases. That's what the constitutional amendment does. And the Bernardi Amendment simply provides for some truth in advertising as the public is deciding on the constitutional amendment coming from the majority.
The member from Morrison, Representative Kresha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm wondering if my colleague, Representative Pinto, would yield for a question.
He will yield. Representative Kresha.
Representative Pinto, since we're clarifying the record, in a surplus time, which we have, can you tell me exactly how this is taking money from those areas?
Representative Pinto.
Representative Kresha, well, of course, in a surplus time, we're making a series of decisions. The majority has decided to dedicate a significant portion of the surplus for corporate tax cuts rather than spending on students and on schools. So we've seen that kind of choice being made right now by the majority. As the Bernardi Amendment references, in a deficit in particular, that's when those choices become even more difficult. So actually, but even in time of surplus, this dedicates these funds, these existing funds to transportation, and thereby they are not available for the people's representatives to make decisions to possibly spend them in those other areas.
Representative Kresha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Pinto, if you'll yield for one more question.
He will yield. Representative Kresha.
Representative Pinto, in this body, in your experience as a legislator, have you found that we have a series of items that we have to make decisions on to make the state run? Yes or no?
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Kresha, we certainly do.
Representative Kresha.
And Representative Pinto, one more question. So would you say that we don't solely just take from one pot from another, that we have to make decisions based on how we make all of this balance? Would you say that's fair?
He will yield. Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Kresha, I would say it's fair that we have to make those decisions among a number of choices. Of course, what the constitutional amendment does is it takes any of that discretion out of the hands of the legislature and takes money that could be going to those other uses and chooses this one particular use among those.
Representative Kresha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, so what you've heard is the argument's trying to be made that this actually takes money directly and takes our hands away. Folks, we have to make transportation decisions. We've heard time and time again from our constituents, fund the roads and bridges. Make sure that we make that a priority. And we're asking with this constitutional amendment that the citizens get a hand in that. They get to make that decision. They get to help guide us as we try to do that. We're a representative democracy. I wouldn't see why this would be a hindrance. This will not bind our hands in that sense that is being presented to us. In fact, it will help guide our hands as we get roads, bridges, infrastructure. So we can try to entertain that. We can try to make that argument. But I believe the real argument is, let's let the will of the people guide us a bit down here. Let's build up the infrastructure. Let's get some jobs out there. And let's show the Minnesotans that we believe this is important. And then we're not going to play games, because guess what? If you've been watching the legislature this year, games are played all over. We say, oh, we're going to do this with the money. Oh, but we're really going to do this. Why not just say to Minnesotans, when you elect me, I'm going to take the will of what you say. We're going to put it into transportation, set that aside. It's good budgeting. We do it at home. I mean, we set the utility bill aside. We set the mortgage bill aside. We set the telephone bill aside. Why can't we be fiscally responsible enough to do that here? What are we afraid of? That the people may give us a good idea that we would use? Are you kidding me? Let's take the will of the people, let's dedicate it to roads and bridges, and let's not try to make this argument that we're in these times where we're taking money. We have a surplus. This is the right thing to do, and I support it, and let's let the folks back home help us decide.
The member from Nicollet, Representative Johnson C.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. You know, Representative Garofalo asked a question, what happened since 2005, 2006? Well, I would suggest we had a steady diet of deficits in the state during the plenty years. 2006-2007 session faced a $466 million deficit. The 2010-2011 session faced a $4.570 billion deficit. And the 2012-2013 session faced a $6.188 billion deficit. I didn't serve during those sessions. I lived at home, and I saw the impact of those deficits, and they were very real. They were very real in the communities where I live, and they were very real in our schools. I remember when this body chose to borrow from the schools to pay off those deficits. So a lot changed since that time, and that's the point of what Representative Bernardi is doing with this amendment. The public needs to be reminded of the reality of those plenty deficits. They had a real impact on Minnesota, and it is very relevant in our debate today.
Member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And would Representative Pinto yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Davids.
Thank you. Representative Pinto, you, I think, simply misspoke on the floor here. You said the tax bill gave tax cuts for corporations. What was the net on that? How much did corporations, how much were their taxes raised, and how much did they receive back?
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of the exact number. What I said, I believe, is that there were corporate tax cuts, and I believe that there were. But Mr. Chair, if there were not tax cuts for corporations at all in the bill, please correct that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to members. On net, there were no tax cuts to corporations in the tax bill. Zero. In fact, corporations, we took money from them and we put it over for tax cuts for individuals and low-income individuals. So I'm going to get up every time somebody says that we gave tax cut to corporation and correct the record, because that's simply not true. The corporations put in a lot more than they received. There was Section 179, there was getting rid of the alternative minimum tax, there's a few things there. But on net, corporations put a whole lot of money to reduce taxes on the poor.
The member from Anoka, Representative Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my colleagues for getting up and talking about this in the robust conversation. In the end, I think it's important that we fully inform the public that there is no new revenue, and in a time of deficit, we could be diverting dollars or forcing cuts to things we care about, like education, healthcare, our seniors, our veterans. So I'm hoping that we can move forward in being fully informing the public I did talk to Representative Torkelson previously to that I would be withdrawing my amendment. Thank you.
Representative Bernardi withdraws the A8 amendment. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 4437.
Third reading. Discussion on the bill, House File 4437 for final passage. The member from Hennepin, Representative Carlson L.
Mr. Speaker, members, I do want to comment a bit on this proposal, and I want to make several points, and I'm going to start with a role that I've played for several years, and I don't see Representative Knobloch on the floor, but he and I participate as representatives of the House as observers to the Council of Economic Advisors. And what I'm about to say is vitally important. When you listen to the economists, liberal, conservative, they're very concerned when you listen to their discussion about the fact that we've had one of the longest periods of prosperity in the country's history. Secondly, they're very concerned that our economic growth is going to soften. Their projections are in future bienniums it's going to drop by as much as 1%. Now, that may not sound like much, but when you're running it across the state budget, that's a lot of revenue that no longer will be coming in. Now, it'll still be, according to their discussions, a positive number, but it's going to be less than what we've been experiencing this biennium in terms of our economic growth. So remember that. The other thing is that's been pointed out during the debate on the previous amendment is that there is no new revenue being provided here. And one of the things that I'd like to point out is that in the debate that we had in Ways and Means on this issue, it was pointed out that it was only 1.4% of the budget. But now that number is against the entire state budget. And if you'll keep in mind that when we're setting the budget, you have base funding. You know, our school districts will have their base funding, and we have to address things like enrollment increases. We have to address things like inflation. And by the way, we no longer, with the forecast, recognize inflation. So keep that in mind when we're talking about the budget and the forecast and what numbers or dollars might be available. So keep in mind that what we're really talking about here is putting transportation, and I think you probably have broad agreement across this body that we do need more money for transportation, but you're putting it in front of all else. If we have a difficult economic period, and I was here in the eye of the storm along with some other members of this body when we were dealing with multi-billion-dollar deficits, and it was alluded to earlier by Representative Clark when we were doing things like taking money from our school districts and so on. But if we have a deficit or a slowdown, this is a constitutional amendment. There were references repeatedly from the proponents on that side of the aisle that, well, this year we have a budget surplus. Well, you got handed out by the chief author of the bill a sheet that shows what happens in future biennium. And the number would grow for the biennium of 24-25, according to the sheet that was passed out, if you look at line 16, to $238,812,000. So keep in mind that that would be moved out above all else. Before you would fund the schools, before you would fund the Health and Human Services bill, others have gone down the entire list. But I'm going to conclude with one point. 50 cents on the dollar. If you look at how much we spend on K-12 or early 12 education plus higher education, it comes out to just a shade under 50%. So 50 cents on the dollar of our economic growth would be going to transportation. Now, as I said earlier, the problem in my view is that we have no new revenue. And that's the issue that's at stake here. So if we're going to take and redesign the pie, just give a real long thought to, well, where is that money going to come from? Now, I did see that some of the business community has endorsed the amendment, and I do know from my conversations with some in the business community, they're very interested in having a quality workforce. There's your education funding, whether we're talking about early ed through grade 12 or our colleges and universities. So do we want to slow our economy by not having a trained workforce because we've put transportation as a part of the general fund ahead of all else? There was discussion earlier, and I see Representative Garofalo's off the floor, about previous votes. But you reach a tipping point, in my view, and some of us that perhaps supported some of those earlier provisions, and the minority leader pointed out that there were other parts of that bill that increased funding as well at the time that Palente vetoed. But the other issue is that you reach a tipping point. That was a relatively minor number for the time, but now you're piggybacking more onto it, and you begin to take more and more from the general fund, and pretty soon you're going to have in the future huge, huge problems. Thank you. Vote no.
Member from Hennepin, Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, one of the things that was passed out to us here has the list of supporters of this amendment. And one of the people that are on this list are the carpenters. Well, most of you know here that I am a carpenter and was a former business agent for the carpenters. And members, I sat at our union meeting last Tuesday night and was asked about this question. And I told them flat out that I do not support this constitutional amendment. And there are many reasons why I don't. Even though, yes, it does bring more money into construction for roads and bridges, but it does nothing like the previous constitutional amendment that was referenced earlier that had money that went for not just roads and bridges, but for transit. Transit in the metro area and transit in the outstate area. In every single county it had money for transit. Because transportation is not just roads and bridges. It's transit. It's all sorts of other different parts of transportation. There's no new money here. This is just shifting money. Shifting money from here to over here, and we're going to tell you we're spending more money when all we're doing is shifting this money. And some people may say that, well, we're just shifting our priorities. This is the priority we want, and we're going to shift it away from that. But we're shifting this priority. We're shifting away from our schools, from our kids. We're taking money from our kids, and we're going to put it in roads and bridges. We're shifting money away from our grandparents and our parents who are in nursing homes. And we're taking it from those parts of this that we spend money on out of the general fund, and we're going to shift it over here and dedicate it constitutionally to roads and bridges. And that's not good. I mean, we did that before the last session. We took money out of the general fund and shifted some of this money over statutorily, which makes more sense because, as was said, we're going to run a deficit in the future sometime. And when we have deficits, stuff that's statutorily dedicated places or we can move around. When it's constitutionally dedicated, it creates a hole in that general fund budget. And that hole's going to be there, and that's going to be, again, we're going to have cuts to our schools. We're going to have cuts to the nursing homes. We're going to have cuts to all the other things that are funded out of the general fund. Because that's the only place we can cut. Because when it's constitutionally dedicated, we can't touch that money. And there are currently a lot of sources of money that is currently already constitutionally dedicated for roads. This is about courage, I think, here too. Again, I stood up at our union meeting in front of a whole bunch of carpenters. And again, I'm retired now, but they're working. And they have concerns because they want jobs. But stand up and tell them, no, I don't support it, and these are the reasons why I don't. And then afterwards, none of them threw me out of the meeting. None of them screamed and hollered at me. They understood where I'm standing for. This is about courage that we have. What we're trying to do here is what they're saying by doing it by the Constitution and constantly legislating by putting stuff in the Constitution. We're holding our finger up and seeing which way the wind's blowing and letting our constituents tell us how we're going to vote and not having the courage to do what we were sent here to do, to make the tough decisions. about how we're going to spend our money and where we're going to raise this money from and how we should raise it. We're saying, well, we're going to do a constitutional amendment and let you guys decide, because we don't have enough courage to do that ourselves. We're not smart enough to do that ourselves. We're going to let you do that because we're not brave enough to make the tough decisions. So members, I'm voting no on this constitutional amendment. It's a bad idea. Yes, we do need more money in construction for roads. Yes, we do need more money in other transportation projects. But this is not the way to do it. And this is taking the chicken's way out by doing it this way.
Member from Waseca, Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill, this amendment actually, is something that we all need to support. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you why in a minute, but even for all the discussions from the DFL side on why we shouldn't, it is really the reasons why we ought to keep doing it or should support the particular bill. We have to remember that transportation is about our roads and bridge structure primarily. That's where the bulk of the money goes. We also agree, I think, that they don't deteriorate very fast unless we have cars and trucks driving on it. And just as many years ago, we determined that the sales tax for those vehicles that are wearing out our roads and bridges, since we're collecting that tax ought to go towards repair and replacement of that particular infrastructure. Now we have the car parts, tires, batteries, that are also keeping these cars and trucks on the road. It certainly seems sensible that that also ought to be part of the infrastructure revenue in order to replace those roads and bridges. I want to also remind us that constitutionally, our roads and bridges as an infrastructure of the state, of an asset that's owned by the state, is one of our core responsibilities that the Constitution puts upon us. So we can argue about whether or not it should be dedicated or not dedicated, and whether or not we ought to do general fund or not. The reality is that it is still our responsibility, just as K-12 is, just as public safety is. That's very, very critical. Now, we heard a lot about, well, what if we have a downturn in the economy? What happens if we have a deficit? Folks, in reality, that's exactly when we need to have the funds dedicated. Road and bridge projects are not like our yearly projects that we do through the rest of our funding here at the legislature. Roads and bridge projects take a minimum of 2 years, sometimes 3 and 4 years. They need to know that they have a dependable funding source for the projects that they plan for. It's devastating to have to go through half of a process and then have the funds pulled because the legislature needs to deal with those funds to deal with the deficit. The reality is the percentage of the budget that would be removed from our general fund, if you want to use 0.7% or 1.4% of the budget, those are funds that are needed in order to improve the roads and bridges. I remember 2013, 2014, I came here in the minority. It was DFL-controlled House, DFL-controlled Senate, and DFL governor. At that time, everybody said we need more funding for roads and bridges. We couldn't get a gas tax passed then. We can't get a gas tax passed now. Everybody said, hey, you've got to do this with the dedicated funds that are out there. We had comments earlier today about how, well, there's plenty of dedicated funds. If we do this dedicated fund now again, then people will kind of assume we have enough money to do everything we need. Well, guess what, folks? That's the same place we're at now. If you really believe that the funding taken away from sales tax for this would be a deficit or a detrimental to our budget, then maybe next year we ought to have a bill to come back with a constitutional amendment to undedicate the sales tax on vehicles, because it's no different. It really is no different. We really need these funds to fund our dependable programs here in the state. So bottom line, folks, is that we have to have dependable funding for the future. This is not enough. We've heard the governor say through his task force that we needed about $600 million a year. And then it got revised to where we really need about $1 billion a year of more funding for this. We're not being able to get it from whether it's DFL controlled or GOP controlled. We're not being able to do it with gas taxes. That's just a reality currently. So we need to figure out other ways of getting this funding necessary for our roads and bridges. This is a great opportunity for us to help with that, to let the constituents out there understand that these funds are needed, that we are already collecting these funds. Let's please transfer them back to transportation, roads and bridges, so we can improve. Otherwise, we're just going to go backwards in our funding and our levels of quality of our roads and bridges. So please vote yes. This is what we need to do for all the various reasons. Even the reasons that you think we shouldn't is actually the reasons why we should vote for it. Please vote green.
Member from Stearns, Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story of how this bill, where this idea for this bill came from. Many of you have probably heard it, but I was laying underneath my 18-year-old Suburban, taking my gas tank off to replace the fuel pump. And my wife, Sherry, my lovely bride who cares for me, comes out and looks at me underneath there with bloody knuckles and grease under my fingernails and says, "You know you can afford a new one, just go buy one." Well, I started to think about that, and I thought, you know what? If I bought a new Suburban, if I bought a new vehicle, gee whiz, where does that sales tax go? It goes to transportation. But gee whiz, I'm out there buying pieces and parts to keep my 18-year-old Suburban on the road. Where does that go? Goes to the general fund. I think there's a disconnect. That should go to roads and bridges and transportation. So a few years ago, this bill isn't a new bill. This bill's been around a couple years. And I tell you what, I see Representative Hertaz laughing because actually I bought the Suburban from him. But it was my Suburban at the time, and it was an 18-year-old Suburban. Just didn't realize the fuel pump was going to go out at that particular time, but that's life. So that's where this comes from, and that's the reality. That's the reality. You buy a new vehicle, the sales tax goes to transportation. But those of us that decide that we're going to keep our old jalopies on the road and we buy pieces and parts to keep them on the road, it should make sense, and I think the public will agree. Common sense says it's a transportation-related cost. It's no different than keeping your other vehicle, you're buying your new vehicle on the road. You should take that money and put it towards transportation, fix our roads and bridges, and maybe we won't have to buy so many shocks and replace so many struts because our roads will just be a little bit smoother. Vote yes on this. Is a good deal. Let the people choose if this is where they want their money to go. Thank you, members. Vote yes.
Member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The other day in Rules, we heard from a member of one of the hard hat unions, and he said something that I think bears repeating. He says, "You won't let us build mines, you won't let us build pipelines, you won't let us build roads. What will you let us build?" And that really struck a chord with me because I hear so often from the other side of the aisle, oh, we have to have a dedicated source of funding for transportation. The 2 years that I served on transportation, that's all I heard. Well, here you go. Here is an opportunity to put that ball into play. And it reminded me of something else, something from my childhood, something from Minnesota. A cartoon, my favorite cartoon still is, Peanuts. And it reminds me of the interaction between Charlie Brown, Lucy, and a football. And I look at this every time I think of a transportation project that you guys are all saying, well, we support that. Or a mining project, say, well, I support that. Or a pipeline project, oh, we support that, and yet it never happens. And it reminds me that that is like Lucy pulling the football away from Charlie Brown as he comes up to kick the ball. You run up to kick the ball and put the ball into play on a pipeline. Whoops, they pull the ball away at the very last second, and you fly through the air and you land on your duff. Same thing for a pipeline or a road. Oh, we support this. It's important. We want a dedicated fund to build roads and bridges. And then as you have the chance and Charlie Brown is running up to kick the ball, I fear, and it sounds like, that the ball's about to get pulled away. Members, you have an opportunity. I think Charles Schultz never allowed Charlie Brown to kick the ball, but now you have the chance to put it into play. Put the ball on the ground, let Charlie Brown kick the ball through the uprights, and fund roads and bridges. Members, vote green.
Member from Carlton, Representative Sundin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to offer a couple of comments to add some clarity to this situation. We've talked about the building and construction trades here in Minnesota. There's just a handful, just a few of the trades that are involved in this effort for the constitutional amendment. And, you know, they're serving their interests. I understand that, but there's 10 other building trades that do a number of other crafts throughout the state, and they're not weighing in on this. They're not in favor of this. They do vertical construction, buildings, coming out of the ground, skyscrapers, the whole works, and this has actually a detrimental effect on those trades. If you take a look at the transit investments that we've had in Minnesota in the last few years, jump on the Green Line, take a ride. Please take a ride and take a look at all the economic development along the Green Line ever since we've established that. So very, very proud to say that that's a good investment for Minnesota. You know, there's a difference between that horizontal construction and the vertical construction. Vertical construction, you build schools, you build hospitals, you build nursing homes, you take care of people. Okay, that covers the other trades, but I'd really like to address some of the deception that's been going on here as people pander for this constitutional amendment. I, in fact, got one of these robo messages on my email. It was very interesting. It was, you know, putting forth their points for a constitutional amendment. It was well written and all of this, and it was signed by a member of one of those building trades unions, supposedly, and it was Lisa Anderson. Lisa Anderson is on my campaign team. So, all your emails, take them with a grain of salt. There's some deception going on here, and please recognize that. Take it for what it's worth. You know, I was going to add some more comments, but I think they're forthcoming from another legislator. Thank you.
Member from Hennepin, Representative Hertas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Just a clarification, that Suburban was 13 years old when I sold it to Representative Howe. And if you got to change a fuel tank, which I did on my similarly aged pickup truck, be sure to take the gas out of it before you drop it. Tough job to put it back up. Members, the sky's not falling here. We're talking about 0.7% of the current budget is being spent on transportation. When we talk about constitutionally dedicating the money, it's good to know that our replacement of our roads and bridges is going to remain on schedule. The easy thing to do when we have budget issues is to do deferred maintenance, and deferred maintenance with our roads and bridges certainly costs a lot more money to fix later rather than taking care of them in the first place. I'd also like to comment that as an employer, when you're sending your crews out with machinery and equipment, a great deal of productivity is lost by the failure of keeping our transportation system up to speed. It's difficult to send a crew out and spend an hour and a half one way to the job site and another hour and a half back, only to pay a full day's wages for about 6 hours of work. So that is certainly problematic, and I hope that we can continue to do this. The last point I would like to make, Representative Carlson, I think I heard you say, with reference to the growth in the budget, that with education using about 50% of the growth, that transportation would therefore deprive education of 50% of that growth. That's not quite right, because the extrapolation is that only the growth in sales tax in the area of auto parts and sales would be dedicated to this cause. So we just need to make sure that there's not some confusion about that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member from Hennepin, Representative Joachim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. been talking a lot today about truth in advertising, and I am disappointed that the amendment got pulled because you have to understand this amendment won't even come close. It's not even a third of what we need to maintain what we have, let alone build any new infrastructure. And that's a number that we've all agreed on, that we need like $600 million a year, I believe, to even maintain what we currently have, let alone do any new construction of roads. And I'm sorry, but I do follow Twitter sometimes when we're having these discussions, and your side just put out a tweet about how Republicans know we can fund our core functions like roads and bridges using the funds that we already have. The funds that we already have. The funds that we already have isn't cutting it. And now we're going to shift those over and leave holes in our future budget, and not just the holes with this constitutional amendment. There are holes all over the budgets that are being proposed right now that just punts all these problems down the road. And I'm really disappointed when it comes to transit, because not everyone drives a car. We have transit-dependent people. And you know what? Good union jobs are out there to expand building transitways too, just to let you know. And there was a whole lot of folks on the testimony in this bill that were saying, you keep doing these constitutional dedicated streams, guess what? Every group is going to be up here, education included, saying, where's my constitutionally dedicated stream? And our job is to be up here and make those tough decisions. So I don't always think, it has to go from point to point, but I don't always think constitutionally dedicated ways are the way to do it. But more importantly, we were sent here to do a job, and Minnesota has been very loud and clear that they care about their education system, they care about our seniors, our veterans, the opioid crisis, our vulnerable Minnesotans, as well as a comprehensive transportation system. And this constitutional amendment doesn't get anywhere close, and it's not being truthful about where the money's coming from. You know, when I ran for this job, I used an analogy about how our family deciding we needed a new minivan. And I went out and got an extra job to help pay for that, because we did what every Minnesotan should be doing and what we should be doing up here, saying, what are our values, what do we care about, what is it going to cost, and how are you going to find the money to fund it? We should not be coming up here and saying, I only want to spend this, so geez, what can I get for it? That's what this constitutional amendment does. Minnesotans deserve better than shopping in the bargain basement. Minnesotans deserve better than us. Please join me in voting no, and let's have a real discussion on transportation for a change.
Member from Dakota, Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a really tough vote for me. I sit on the Transportation Committee, and I have ever since I've been in this body, and I am constantly advocating for more money. Way back when I was on the City Council, I knew MnDOT was 20 years behind in its project, so I was really tempted. However, I keep remembering one of the testifiers who opposed this amendment. He said, this is the coward's way out. And he's right. Just a little history. It seems whenever House Republicans have a part in leadership, there's very little that seems to get done in the way of real good solution or solving problems. Remember 2005, 2011, when Republicans were in leadership in the legislature? There were shutdowns. I was here in 2008 when we did the comprehensive transportation bill. We waited for hours till the chamber came forward, and we finally got 5 or 6 Republicans to vote for the comprehensive transportation bill. The Republicans have never been there in the last decade for transportation, so give me a break here. I'm not going to be an enabler for irresponsible behavior. You've got your election certificates. Let's see you vote. Let's not pass it off. I mean, it just boggles my mind that you want the privileges of holding the certificates, but you don't want to vote. I challenge the House Republicans to come up with a comprehensive transportation bill. I will vote for it, but I am not going to vote for the chicken way out. Please vote no on this bill.
Member from Ramsey, Representative Mariani.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
Earlier in the debate, someone, one of our members, talked about reference laughing. This is not a laughing matter. This is a really, really bad idea. The same arguments that we've heard here for proponents of this bad idea can be made about all sorts of other vital things that Minnesotans care about. Minnesotans care about their children. They care about the education of their children. Minnesotans care about their elderly. Minnesotans care about the nursing facilities that we fund to take care and honor our elderly. Minnesotans care about public safety. Minnesotans invest in making sure we have law enforcement that respects the public and protects the public. All those are vitally important. Every year we come here, we make decisions about how we take the people's bounty to cover all the things that are important for Minnesotans. But today, a whole new proposition is put forward in front of us. The proposition that only one thing is really truly important, and the other things, by definition, therefore, are less important. The people of Minnesotans do not hold to that. That's the wrong approach to governing. I'm wondering, Mr. Chair, if Representative Dabney would yield to a couple of quick questions.
Representative Dabney will yield. Representative Mariani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Dabney, you're the lead Democrat on the K-12 Finance Committee. I serve on that committee with you. Can you tell this body right now what's happening right now in terms of legislating this year to fund the formula allocations that support our public schools?
From Hennepin, Representative Dabney.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Representative Mariani, thank you for the question. As you know, the general education formula is the base. It's what everyone receives. It's how we say to every child in the state, you get an education. You're important. You're the future for Minnesota. The K-12 bill, finance bill, as it left this body to conference committee, had no proposed increase in the general education formula.
Member from Ramsey, Representative Mariani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Dabney, if you'll continue to yield. The other issue that's happening in K-12 in our public schools has to do with the uncovered costs with special education. Those are not small. Can you tell this body what that is and what's happening in the bill that we passed off the floor of this House to take care of that uncovered cost?
He will yield. Representative Dabney.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Representative Mariani. There's many districts that are challenged by funding the services that special education students need to be successful and that the districts are legally obligated to provide them. The total special education unfunded bill in Minnesota is $680 million this year. $400 million of that is because the federal government has never stepped up to its commitment, going back decades now, to fund 40% of those costs. $280 million of that is the state failing to fully fund the special education obligations for school districts and students.
Representative Mariani.
And Mr. Speaker, Representative Dabney can continue to yield. Of that $280 million, what are we doing in House legislation this year to cover that uncovered cost?
He will yield. Representative Dabney.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Representative Mariani. The K-12 bill that left the floor and sits in conference committee now has no increase in special education funding. And to step a little bit further, another expensive but necessary and critical service for some students in Minnesota is English language learning. specifically for students who are coming out of homes where they speak a language other than English. The diversity of our state is growing in terms of the student population. It's growing faster these days in greater Minnesota than urban Minnesota, where you and I reside. There's no funding for additional funding in the K-12 bill this year for English language learning supports either.
Representative Mariani.
So, Mr. Speaker and members, we can do this for a long time. We can get up and ask all sorts of members here about all the other things that Minnesotans care vitally about. I mentioned nursing homes earlier, talked about public safety. We can talk about the quality of water. We can talk about supporting small family farms. We can go on and on because they're all important. And yet, this body is not doing what it needs to do in those areas. We just heard what it's not doing in the face of tremendous needs in our K-12 public education system. But again, the proposition today is, from the Republican majority, we figured out what is the single most important thing. It's so darn important that we're going to lock it into the Constitution for funding by taking it to the people and arguing that it's the single most important thing and it should be done, because that will be the effect once you do this California-style referendum of having the people make a decision when the full story is not in front of them. Members, this is a bad way to govern. And yet, apparently in 2018, this is the Republican way to govern, to divide us as a people, to divide our interests, to pit one vital, important interest over another one. It's called game playing, folks. You heard earlier sort of a mocking voice here about how Democrats, here's your chance to have the dedicated source of funding. It's not. A dedicated source of funding takes true courage. It takes mature leadership. It takes modernizing and updating how to capture the needed revenues to make the investments in things like transportation based on how our society currently functions. It's functioning less and less as one that's going to be dependent on carbon-based fuels, on gasoline, which has been our mainstay for taking care of our roads, but it's not going to be our mainstay. That's the conversation around dedicated source of funding, not going into the existing budget and therefore pitting everything else that people care about in Minnesota in order to cover only one thing. It's a taking from strategy. It's not a leadership approach. It's not a healthy approach to funding the things that matter. I submit to you, members, that people aren't going to be fooled by this. They're not going to be fooled by this debate. They're not going to be fooled with what happens with this bill and this idea as it apparently is going to move forward as the majority is hanging on to this bad idea. They're not going to buy it. What they want is true leadership, courageous leadership, mature decision-making, not this game play. This is a wrong approach. Members, do the right thing and vote against it.
Member from Hennepin, Representative Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At our core as Minnesotans, we care for one another. And in that spirit of caring for one another, we must reject the notion of scarcity. We have an opportunity to come together as Minnesotans where everyone is in and no one is out, where we can educate our young people, care for the most vulnerable, and invest in a robust transportation system. This amendment only serves to divide us, not bring us together to care for one another, and will tie our hands in a crisis. Vote no.
Member from Hennepin, Representative Slocum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to make this really short because there have been certainly eloquent speeches about essentially the same thing. But why aren't we then dedicating a fund to education and index it for inflation and include the cross-subsidy for special education? And so we have ongoing, stable, good, adequate funding for something we supposedly value more than the Benjamins, our kids.
Member from Nicollet, Representative Johnson C.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. In Minnesota, I'm coming to the end of my 6 years in the House, and I've spent a lot of my time working on transportation issues. I think everybody knows I'm an avid proponent for a real, comprehensive, and compromise to make sure we fund transportation in all its facets. And I, like Representative Mason, that's our goal here. That's what we're working for. This is not it. I look at this, we had a lot of debate last session about the use of the general funds and for transportation. And I think we just have to face about what the realities are here during good times. So I think there's problems with using the general fund for transportation in good times, in times of prosperity, like now. I frequently use the example because it's near and dear to my heart, because it's near and dear to the hearts of many of my neighbors who have a family member who needs a home health care aide, who have somebody that needs a little help and they can't find anybody, or the agency that hires these folks can't find anybody to work at it because the wages are too low. We have had these folks coming before us for years asking for a 5% raise, a meager 5% raise. And this legislature was unable to do it last year. There's nothing in I don't believe there's anything in the bill going forward. I've heard no talk about it from the Republicans this time to give them that little 5% raise this year. And so that as the crisis for home health care just deepens and deepens, it's not addressed. The reason I bring that up is the amount of money that it would take to give them that 5% raise is about very close to the amount of money that we use the general fund to build roads for in the last year. And so I think it's fair to say basically that was the trade-off. We built some roads, and those roads are important. I agree with you. I think we're in general agreement on that. But it came at a cost of that 5% wage for home health care workers. This is in times of prosperity, times when we have a surplus. So there's problems when there's times of prosperity. Well, there's deep peril when there's times of deficit. And I'll remind you, those numbers are big. We can't forget, I'm a former history teacher. You got to remember your history, folks. 4.570 million in 2010, billion rather, in 2010 and 2011, and then 6.188 billion in 2012 and 2013. And how do we fare then? Well, I wasn't here again. I was working at Minnesota State Mankato, and I was an advisor. So I worked with a lot of students struggling to get through school. And a lot of the reason, really, as I came to my 30 years, end of my 30 years of tenure at MSU, I really determined that probably the number one risk factor for students was not academics, it was finances. And they just couldn't afford it. That's the time when we saw the skyrocketing tuition. And I can't tell you how many students, they would come to my office, they say, Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry, but I won't be here next semester because I got to take a break because I can't afford it. Or the students who would say, I'm working 45 hours a week, my paper's going to be late. On and on and on. And now those students, those who have graduated, are facing mountains of debt, and it still has ramifications. That's a personal story for me, but it's a personal story for many of our families. And again, I hear this time and again when I'm talking to folks at home. So when we have those times of deficits, and it's only reasonable to assume that we will have times of deficit in the future, there is real peril for the state of Minnesota, and particularly for the citizens of Minnesota. But I would argue that there's particular peril for rural Minnesota. I'm a rural legislator. I'm proud to be that. I love to live I'm a country boy. I like it. And I'll tell you, and I'm proud to be stand up and speak for rural Minnesota. And this amendment has particular peril for rural Minnesota. Because when there's those deficits, there's cuts in vulnerable areas. And frankly, we just don't have the property tax base to make it up. Recently, I saw in the paper, one member of the Senate said, the problem with the school funding, it's a local problem. Well, that might work in some school districts, but it doesn't work in the school district of St. James. School district St. James, where there's a lot of $100,000 homes. They don't have the ability to raise property taxes and really meet their needs. They just can't do it like other areas can. And that's really identified. I hope you saw the legal size sheet that was distributed. This is an op-ed written by the president of the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities and the president of the board of directors of the Minnesota Rural Education Association. And they've concluded this amendment is bad for rural Minnesota, and I agree with them. They said specifically, the threat to our rural schools and cities is more than theoretical. Let me say that again. The threat to our rural schools and our cities is more than theoretical. During a hearing in the Senate Transportation Committee, Senator Scott Newman, one of the chief authors of the amendment on the Senate side, acknowledged that local government aid and education are typically the first budget items cut by the legislature when there is an economic downturn. We know that where I live. We certainly know that in Nicollet. We know that in St. Peter. We know that across rural Minnesota. So I'm making this plea to turn down this amendment from a rural legislator's viewpoint. This will have a dramatic and a perilous effect on the future of our rural schools, our rural communities. Again, I want to join you with you. I wish I could have had the opportunity to come together as a body in a real compromise, to have a real solution to transportation. We have not done that, but doing this does not solve the problem. I encourage a no vote.
Member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I heard comments about true leadership. True leadership is not declaring a last-minute emergency as an excuse to veto things and as a negotiation way to negotiate. That concept isn't right. Same thing with communicating to the legislature via press conference. When a proposal comes out to the press conference, the proposal isn't seen by the chairs of the committee until after it's dropped as a bill. That isn't working together. That isn't true leadership. That isn't how we should communicate and get things done. Now, the appropriate thing to do is be proactive. We've seen that some this year. The most recent one was the quarantine thing. We didn't have an emergency, but we knew that we might in the future, and we did something. It wasn't a huge step, but we made progress. And frankly, years ago, we wouldn't be in the situation now if years ago we realized, gee, we have alternative fuel vehicles, we have better fuel economy. We're not going to be able to use the old way of funding transportation forever. So the idea of actually saying what's related to transportation so that, frankly, most lower income people can't afford that electric vehicle. They can't afford that new vehicle that gets the better gas mileage. So the gas tax is progressive. It hurts the poor. What this is saying is, let's be logical and future thinking, and maybe things that are related to vehicles so that the rich, wealthy person that could buy the new fancy car that doesn't burn any gas, but it still uses tires until we have flying cars. We'll have to work on that sometime. But still uses tires, still uses other auto parts things. Related revenue is the intelligent thing to do to try and stabilize transportation funding. Doesn't seem like we're debating the validity of saying, let's do this. We're trying to come up with excuses not to do it. And frankly, that's part of the problem. To fix this, we're worried about other things instead of focusing how do we fix this. We've had proposals through the years to try and do something. They don't make it or they get vetoed. Well, if something doesn't work, you try something else. So let's ask the people, is this common sense to go ahead and try and stabilize our transportation funding by saying things that are related, revenue to the state related to transportation, no matter if it takes gas or electricity or whatever the new thing will be, that it helps fund those roads that they're using, that our school buses are using, that our ambulances are using. And I think this is a reasonable, connected way of making something that at least will be stable for the next period of time until, like I say, flying cars or something else comes along. So I think it's fine to let the people decide if this is common sense or not, and to debate the merits of this and not think of every other thing as an excuse not to move forward. Thank you.
Member from Dakota, Representative McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Speakers, members. I'm going to try not to channel all of the frustration that I have been feeling, but it's hard not to because we are, 4 days from the end of session. We have passed nothing that helps keep Minnesotans safer, background checks and gun sales, opioid crisis bills, things that Minnesotans come to this legislature and beg for. We have done nothing to address their needs. And then we have this proposal that I think you all know is fiscally irresponsible, which is why you want to take it to the people with half of the sentence on a ballot, so that when this blows a hole in our budget, you can blame it on them. They decided to do it. Because if you really believed in this, if you really thought it was a good idea, you would just vote on it and do it. But here's what we know. This pie chart that you handed out, these pieces are all part of the pie, and you can split them up differently. But here are some things that aren't going to get smaller. We have an aging population in this state, silver tsunami they call it. They're going to need more health care, more housing. They're going to need to get places, like with Metro Mobility and Metro Transit, which, by the way, is not helped by this constitutional amendment. Education becomes increasingly individualized, and costs are going up. That doesn't help with this amendment. Members, this is a lazy way to govern. It's not just bad. It's not cowardly. It is a lazy way to govern. We should all be voting no on this amendment and make sure that we are budgeting responsibly within our state. The gimmicks and shifts Minnesotans are onto this. They are over it, and they do not want us to do it anymore. Vote no.
Member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, interesting discussion. Representative McQuaid said this was a lazy way to govern. I'm wondering if Representative Murphy E. would yield to a question, Mr. Speaker.
She does not. Representative Drazkowski.
She won't yield. Would Representative Hausman yield to a question?
She will not. Representative Drazkowski.
How about Representative Bernardi?
No, too. Representative Drazkowski.
Okay, I didn't mean to be that intimidating, Representatives Bernardi and Murphy and Hausman. But I guess I will just go back and revisit history. A lazy way to govern. So, members, what the Democrats are saying is, if you don't raise taxes, you're governing lazy. They want more tax increases. That's what this is about. We've heard them speaking in code all afternoon about sustainable, comprehensive funding, investments. They want to raise taxes on Minnesotans again and again and again, just like they did in 2013 and 14. And so I was looking back in history here a little bit. The NPR had a story back 5 years ago, almost today, written by Tom Scheck. And he quoted then Speaker Thiessen about, well, Speaker Thiessen, they already voted to raise the gas tax and sales taxes for transportation in the Senate. Why didn't you do it in the House? And so, Representative Murphy, that was my question for you that you ran away from. But the question is, as Speaker Thiessen at the time said, we had discomfort in raising gas and sales taxes. So the question, and you're not going to answer it, Representative Murphy, but the question is, what was your discomfort in raising gas and sales taxes when you had full control of the House, the Senate, and the governor here in Minnesota? If you truly believe in raising these taxes on Minnesotans, you had the full ability, Democrats, to do it back then, and you did not. So don't preach to us in code about how we need to somehow raise more sustainable revenues. You want to raise taxes and you want us to raise them, but we're listening to the people of Minnesota, and they are overtaxed to death. We've got the greatest amount of revenue in this state, in the history of our state. It's increasing at unbelievable amounts. Another $329 million in overcollection of the people's money is scheduled to happen between now and the 30th of June of next year. Overcollection. And Representative Hertaus shared with me some of the projections so far this fiscal year. Over $825 million of surplus or overcollection of the people's money, and we want to give the people of Minnesota the ability to decide whether or not they want to dedicate these excessive amounts of money that we are overcollecting in the state of Minnesota to fix our failing roads and bridges. And you say no. You say no because you want to raise more taxes on Minnesotans. And Representative Mariani, you're right. We're taking that money from them. That's what taxes do, members. They take money away from the hardworking people of our state that are struggling under the pressures of government.
For what purpose do you rise, Representative Dabney?
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
State your point of order, Representative Dabney.
Mr. Speaker, I rise under Mason's Section 121, breaches of the order of the House, Section 1.
Representative Dabney rises a point of order under Mason's Section 121. I believe you said paragraph 1, Representative Dabney?
Mr. Speaker, that's correct.
State your advice.
Mr. Speaker, under Section 1 of Paragraph 1 of Section 121, an ancient rule governing debate is that no one is to speak impertinently, sorry about that, or beside the question, or perhaps more to the point, superfluously or tediously.
Members, I will defer ruling on the point of order and only ask that future points of order have fewer complicated words for the presiding officer to understand. The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski, you do have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Dabney, thank you for that tedious exercise, whatever it was. But members, we are taxing the gajibers out of the people of Minnesota. Okay, I'm an old guy. Gajibers. We're taxing the gajibers out of the people of Minnesota while they haven't even had a chance to catch up with the rapid acceleration in taxation and collection, and in this case, over collection of their monies by this huge government in our state. And then I'm reading, and you know, the Democrats want to build more light rail. And that's part of the design of this amendment, obviously, so that we can actually focus or allow Minnesotans, if they so choose, to focus these monies on roads and bridges, which they have been telling us over and over and over again is a priorities that they hold. But instead, we see the governor and, in the past, the legislature pushing more and more light rail, a 1900s technology in 2018, pushing it down this rat hole called Southwest Light Rail, which is now projected to cost $2 billion just to build it. It started out at $800 million. And of course, it keeps going higher and higher and higher. And so now they would like to raise taxes more to pay for that, and then claim if that isn't available, or we don't have enough money to pay for all of that, that it's our fault and we need to raise taxes on Minnesotans. Members, we don't need to raise taxes. There's plenty of revenue in this state. What this proposal does, what this amendment does, it gives the people of Minnesota to make that decision, And they should make that decision, yes or no. And if they do, remember, it's not your money to spend, members. It's not anybody's in this chamber's money to spend. It's the people's money. And if the people decide they want to spend it on roads and bridges, we should give them that chance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member from Ramsey, Representative Murphy E.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and Representative Drazkowski, I'm not afraid of you, that's for sure. But thank you for that interesting dialogue. What I am frustrated about, and sincerely frustrated about, is the cynical nature of this proposal. And it is indeed cynical because while you, the Republican majority, will talk about this like you are solving a problem, there is not. And members who have been working on transportation for a long time have testified already today on the floor that there is not enough funding in this proposal to do the job, to build the transportation for Minnesota's future. And I'll say that where I live and in other parts of the state, Minnesotans are exceptionally frustrated, not only with the inadequacy of what we are delivering out of this body, out of this legislature with this Republican majority, but they're tired of the cynicism with which we are delivering it. We are going to talk at the end of the session, you will, that you did something about opioids, but you didn't, and you're letting the pharmaceutical companies off the hook. You will, Republican majority, you will say that you did something about elder abuse while we've done nothing about what is happening to the people inside our nursing facilities and assisted living facilities. Nothing. And every time this body gets up at the end of a session and says, we delivered for the people of Minnesota when we haven't, they know, Minnesotans know, and it pushes them away from any participation or faith in us. And across the state of Minnesota, we get, Minnesota's families get, that our transportation system isn't serving us today and it's not going to serve our future. It won't. There's not enough money in this proposal. Ask the people who are supporting it. It's a half-baked idea, and I would love to be back in your districts with you and watch you with a straight face say to the people of Minnesota, this is the best that we could have delivered for you. Because I have been here 12 years and know what it means when you empty out accounts, which you are famous for doing. And here you are again, punching a hole in the general fund, which means in the future, as this document, our briefing document shows us, $300 million a year coming out of the general fund. With no plan to fill that, which means we're going to scramble to fund our schools, we're going to scramble on local government aid, we're going to scramble on higher education, which means more student debt for young people coming out of college. This is a cynical proposal, and Representative Drazkowski, I'm not going to play a game with you on this floor, and I'm not going to play a game with the people of Minnesota, and we will not play a game with the people of Minnesota. This is malarkey. And if we really want to do something right for the people of Minnesota, we need to do the courageous thing, right? And fully fund transportation. And this doesn't cut it.
Member from Anoka, Representative Runbeck.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And, and members, I want you to think about infrastructure. This is what I'm thinking about when I think about voting for this bill. And that's a kind of a boring, humble word, but infrastructure is everything. When we vote for this bill, we are voting not only for roads and all the components that it takes to build roads, the concrete, the blacktop, the aggregate, the equipment. We are also funding the kinds of things that build the water treatment, the water pipe, the sewer pipe, the pumping stations, all of that, because this money is going to small cities, to medium-sized cities, and to large cities, all of our cities. So it's critical, critical. And these are the kinds of costs we can quantify. We know what they are. We know what they get us. And if we do not have a basic, reliable, functioning infrastructure, I mean, we as a state don't have anywhere to go. We don't have an economy. We don't have growth. We don't have revenue. So to me, it's the most basic and most logical, common sense reason to vote for this bill, and I urge your support.
Member from Hennepin, Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. You know, whenever we have a transportation discussion, I think of my friend, former Representative Bernie Leader. And I know I've talked a little about him on the House floor. And Representative Leader's philosophy of transportation was that we move forward as a state when we move forward together. So he crafted transportation bills and transportation policies that every citizen of the state of Minnesota could benefit from. People in the metro area, the rural area. He also made sure that all modes of transportation were included: roads, bridges, public transportation. And that we maintained our roads as well as expanded and constructed them. So there are a few areas where this bill falls short in transportation finance and policy. My colleagues have done a very good job in talking about diversions from the general fund, which is a very key reason to vote no, but there's also some transportation finance questions as well. If you look at 2.25 and 2.28 in the bill on page 2, you'll see that the word maintenance is not included in one of the functions, one of the ways in which the money raised from this will be utilized. And that is critically important, members, because MnDOT tells us that we are going to have a very, very serious problem after 2020 in terms of simply maintaining our roads, literally crumbling infrastructure. That's not covered. We're not emphasizing maintenance. We're emphasizing expansion. So that's a shortcoming and a serious one. It's also been mentioned that two-thirds of our established need to address our road and bridge problem in the state, not addressed in this bill. And finally, we also aren't addressing transit. And transit is a statewide need and a statewide interest. You know, we have systems that you might not hear much about, right? Like Paul Bunyan Transit, which is a dial-a-ride service for Beltrami, Roseau, and Lake of the Woods counties. It transports many people, seniors, others, to appointments and other necessities in terms of getting from point A to point B. Metrobus in St. Cloud is a very large transportation system serving the greater St. Cloud area. It's not just St. Cloud, it's Sartell, Sauk Rapids, Waite Park. They have dial-a-ride service for seniors as well. People with disabilities are served by this. There's a College Connect service in St. Cloud that transports students to St. Cloud State University. And similar services at Hiawatha Land Transit in Red Wing. They talk about people of all ages ride our buses to go places like school, work, the grocery store, doctor's office, pharmacy, and library. These are the basic building blocks of transportation in our state that we don't have a thin dime to fund in this bill. And then there's in the metro area, we have Plymouth Metrolink, transports workers to and from downtown, Maple Grove Transit, and of course our Metro Transit system, which 81 million rides per year, over 260,000 riders per day. Not a thin dime in this bill. And we're talking about expanding our bus system here in the metro area. Arterial bus rapid transit is a system that both the chairs of the Transportation Policy and Governance Committee and Transportation Finance Committee have said is a good thing. It's a good thing. It's efficient. It gets people from point A to point B. We don't fund it. And I have heard the argument made that when we fund roads and bridges, we're also funding transit because we're improving roads and bridges. True, but the way to really fund transit is to build those, procure those energy efficient buses to build bus shelters to keep people warm in those cold winter days here in Minnesota when folks are waiting for the bus. It's hiring, recruiting, and paying drivers and purchasing those vans for our senior citizens and people with disabilities who use and depend on these systems. Not one thin dime in this bill. So members, I return again to Representative Leader's worldview. That it's somewhat similar. I think he's doing in transportation what I think Senator Paul Wellstone used to often say, that we all do better when we all do better. This is not a bill. This is not an amendment. This is not an approach where we all do better when we all do better. Please, members, vote no.
The author of the bill, the chairman of the Transportation Finance Committee from Brown, Representative Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members, for a extensive debate about this constitutional amendment. I'd first start out by thanking the proponents of this issue and thank them not just for what they've done this year, but for what they did last year. These folks came to my office, a broad coalition of people that build roads and people that need roads, and came to me and said, we want to help you. We want to help you fund transportation more effectively. And we sat down and worked together and formulated a bill that started to tap into the general fund, because transportation is important to all of us and it deserves its piece of the general fund. And we accomplished that last year. Last year's transportation bill did tap into the general fund in a small way, but it did it statutorily. Then this same group of people came back to me this year and said, you know, we want to dedicate those revenues constitutionally. And frankly, I was resistant. I wasn't sure that that was such a great idea. But as I observed the situation here in Minnesota and thought about transportation funding and what it takes to get dollars into the system and build our roads and bridges, I realized that we depend already on constitutionally dedicated funds. And I asked myself, so why is that? Why did our forebears in this body and the other body across the hall here decide that constitutionally dedicating funds to transportation was a worthy endeavor? And all I can think is that there were times when transportation did not get its fair share, that when other budget items push transportation off the side. And what happens then is you don't have this progress of steady funding that allows the Department of Transportation to plan a project, allows contractors to buy the equipment they need to build a project, and gets everything in place so that projects can move forward. Transportation projects don't happen overnight. They take years to plan, years to permit, and we've made that more challenging over time with the various regulations we have on wetlands and how we construct these projects. So what do we do? You know, the fact is, folks, that we as a legislature have not been funding transportation adequately. I looked through all these letters from both proponents and opponents to this bill, and nobody's saying, oh, there's plenty of money for transportation, don't do any more. It's all about sources. What is the appropriate source of revenue for transportation? Does it deserve to be constitutionally dedicated? I believe it does. Because when we don't, it falls on the chopping block. It's easy to say, well, you know, we got a good road system. We don't have to build another project this year. And if we're short of money, we'll cut transportation and do other things that we believe to be more important and have a higher priority. And that's what's happened. So over these last few years, we've had a really challenging time getting more money for transportation while other budget areas grow with the greater revenues that we're taking in. The truth is, every dollar that goes to this work, whether it be part of the general fund or from the gas tax or wherever, is coming out of Minnesota taxpayers' pockets. And don't these Minnesota taxpayers deserve a chance to put their 2 cents worth in and say, I want my roads rebuilt. I want transportation to be properly funded. You know, there's been a lot of talk about what this is not, that somehow because we're trying to move ahead with this transportation funding that we're somehow cheating everybody else that should be at the table. This is just an effort to make sure that transportation, roads, and bridges have a stream of funding they can depend on. It's not taking money away from anyone. It's saying that this is a priority for Minnesota. Roads and bridges are critical to the success of this state. Without a good road and bridge system, you can't get the goods and services we all need and that everyone deserves to and from the places they're needed. This is just about making sure that Minnesota can progress with a system that meets the needs of our citizens. Members, thank you for a healthy debate today. Thanks to the supporters of this initiative. I think it's an important one. I'm happy to be here. There's been some rather disparaging remarks made. I'm going to ignore those because I think we need to move forward. Mr. Speaker and members, I ask for your green vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. Pearson votes aye. There being 76 ayes and 54 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.